Okay. Thanks.
The one that's just for that. Yeah. Just, because I know.
No, Richard said we didn't.
Well, just in case you want to see what it is, I mean, we're
Well,
trying
we'll
to.
come back.
Okay.
6:30? It is. Everybody here early? I'm not sure anybody's sitting that row. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'd like to call to order the regular Village Council meeting of Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. If we could all stand for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the record reflects those who are present. I will now call the roll. Village Attorney Serafan.
Present.
Village Manager Benton.
Here.
Councilman Brady.
Here.
Councilman Lafredo.
Here.
Vice Mayor Birch.
Present.
Mayor Wagger.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we'll have our presentation, and today we will be presenting the House of the Month to Frankie Quintero and Raquel Santos. Are they here this evening? Well, I'll tell you a little bit about their house then. Frankie and Raquel moved into Miami Shores in 2017, looking for a place to call home that would afford them peace, quiet, and a sense of community. Miami Shores, as a community, checked off all their wants and place to call home for their family. The property is in pristine condition, with decorative rocks in the driveway that match many of the accents on the property. The neatly maintained hedges guide visitors straight to the door. And you can see that home here. And, Mr. Manager, I'm going to ask one more time. Frankie or Raquel, are you here? Okay, Mr. Manager, can we
We'll
make sure that they get their
Yes, ma'am.
certificate? Thank you very much. And before we go into public comments, I see that Senator Pizzo is here. Did you just walk in? Is he hiding? He's right there. Hi. Welcome. And we have State Representative Dottie Joseph. And I know that you wanted to address us, Representative Joseph, so if you'd like to come to the podium, we'd love to have you now. Thank you.
And Pizzo is here with me. We're going to do a little
Are you going to tag team? Excellent. Love it. Thank you.
I figure you guys don't mind some teamwork. Alrighty, let's get set up.
Good evening, everyone.
So let's see here. For those who don't know us, as you heard, I'm State Representative Dottie Joseph, and this awesome gentleman is.
Senator Jason Pizzo.
And we represent Miami Shores in Tallahassee. What we wanted to do is just kind of give you an overview of some of the things that happened in session. We're not going to get into a whole lot of detail. My assistant is here. If you have any more questions, she'll stick around after the meeting to give you more information or just to get in touch with us. All right, so with that, we're just going to kind of jump on into it. First, let's talk about money. I hope you don't mind. We just go straight into that. So, requested money for all of my cities and only got money for a few. Luckily, you happen to be one of them. We were able to bring home some bacon and specifically got $410,500 for the village of Miami Shores. And that is part of the traffic calming program. We did have positive committee hearings, everything unanimously approved for the Shores Estates Drainage Project, and the Shores Estates Sewer Design, but unfortunately, neither of those made it into the budget. We also requested funding for the Doctors Charter School. They have some, charter schools sometimes have a bad name, but luckily the one in Miami Shores is not one of those. So, anything you want to add on that?
As it relates to, and a lot of you are familiar with how the sausage is made up in Tallahassee. So what we do is we have a first round of presentations, and then we try to get at least a placeholder for at least $50,000. But we made the case specifically on Miami Shores, where I was like, folks, listen, they haven't gotten $1 in 15 years. They have not been adequately represented, and it's really, it's disservice and it's disproportionately affecting our municipalities. I have 15 that I proudly serve. So we got a placeholder for Miami Shores, and it went from 50 to 100 to 200 to 210, and then finally to the full 410. And one of the senators for the appropriations chair told me happy birthday.
And you know what? Let me just pause there to put that in context, because I don't know that a lot of people know. So we both happen to be part of the Democratic Party. This is not a partisan presentation. But there are several people who went up to Tallahassee and got nothing in the budget, including people in the majority party. So I don't want you to underestimate this like Herculean feat that we have achieved. And it helps to have people tag teaming it in both houses, because you can get something in one budget and not the other, and vetoed at the end. I mean, all kinds of crazy things can happen. And I do want to shout out to your lobbying team, because they did, they pulled their weight too. You know what I'm saying? But it's a team effort. So moving right along, go ahead.
One last thing I will say about funding, and this is par for the course for the rest of the cities in our district, Senate District 38. We continue to have tremendous headwinds and resistance because of certain can kicking, so to speak, down the road from our county commissioners. And what I mean by that is it's very difficult to have even a consideration of funding. I know you guys had an ask, I think it was $368,000, and it was a reasonable ask considering you guys are all completely on septic. And it's at 2019, we are way past the tipping point, and we need to seriously consider septic to sewer conversion county and statewide. Presently, the county, I believe, has 92,165 homes and businesses on septic. All of your homes are on septic. And it's very difficult. The headwinds consistently tend to be that the fact that there was a consent decree from the federal government with the county in 2013, that our committee members, our colleagues, our Senate colleagues especially, and the chair, reads the headlines, 720,000 gallons of raw sewage into the bay, and something going on in North Miami right now. We've been on the phone with DOH and DEP to get down here to test fecal matter in the water in North Miami. So we need buy-in from everyone. It's easier to get projects funded when there's matching funds, but it's also easier to get people philosophically on board when there's a matching ideology about moving forward. So we continue to have resistance and headwinds, but we're not afraid. This team is not afraid of calling it out. No, we're not. So.
Yeah, I can't underscore that enough, and it's not unique to Miami Shores. It's up and down the coastline. So I'm going to talk to you about some policy bills. Meaning in the Senate, they get unlimited bill slots. We, in the House, we get 6. Fortunately, I was able to pass 3. I passed one bill, which is CSHB 563, which allows victims of domestic violence to qualify for unemployment compensation if they have to leave their job because of a domestic violence situation. That's the long and short of it. We have one that is commemorating women's suffrage. For those who don't know, next year marks the 100-year anniversary of women getting the right to vote. So we put together a commission to commemorate that. And finally, we have our homeowners policy insurance bill. Basically, the notice requirement required insurance companies to send out a notice. Problem is, a lot of people will get the notice and get confused and think they hadn't bought flood insurance when they were already insured. So we just clarified it so people didn't get confused. And then I'm going to talk about some co-sponsored bills, which is actually part of the sponsors' bills. But let me tell you some of the bills that didn't get passed. And part of this is just a problem in terms of ideology and what we have going on right now. I had a resolution to have Florida be the last state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, which would amend the U.S. Constitution to declare that men and women are equal. And that has people don't understand. A lot of people think that that's already the case, but it's not. And it has significant ramifications. A lot of times people don't understand. So constitutionally, that covers everything from men and women. There was one case, I'll give you one and then I'll move on, a U.S. Supreme Court case of Nugent, where a gentleman who served in the military abroad in Asia had a son. He brought the son back over, single father, raised the kid all the way, through. Son got in trouble, and they deported the son. because citizenship doesn't transfer in the same way when you're born abroad to a man as it does to a woman's child. I mean, and if the Equal Rights Amendment was there, that would not have been the case. So people think it's just a woman issue. No, it affects all of us. And if we just say we're equal, that would address a lot of issues. But moving right along, equal pay for women didn't go anywhere. Paid family leave. The United States is the only country in the developed world to not have some form of paid family leave. A lot of people are giving it lip service, but we haven't seen the action come to fruition yet. I had a bill that would automatically seal the records of minors for qualified criminal infractions that were basically bogus charges. So it would automatically seal it instead of them having to go through a process. I know Senator Pizzo, through the prosecutor's office, and I'm former president of the Haitian Lawyers Association, we would collaborate all the time to do these sealing and expungement clinics. This would obviate the need for things like that. Background checks for guns didn't go anywhere. No gun reform, anything went anywhere. Protect the Sadowski Fund, shot down. Repeal the death penalty, shot down. Maternal Mortality Prevention Task Force. Now, before I get into that, let's talk about some of the awesome bills that did make it through, such as...
One of the bills I was very proud to file in the Senate, Representative Jones from Miami, serving Miami and parts of Broward County, we filed companion bills for dignity for incarcerated women. You'd be shocked and dismayed to learn that presently we do not provide specific hygiene products to women in facilities, nor have we ever codified the behavior of male correctional facility employees with women as it relates to pat down and body searches. So that's now changed. The governor should be receiving it shortly and hopefully signing it. There was some resistance in the House. They had sort of a watered down bill that didn't apply to county facilities where it's most important, where the transporting of female inmates to the courthouse that I used to see hundreds of wasn't applying, and I may have told the representative to go back and tell the speaker that I'll write the check out for tampons myself if I have to, but the bill's passing. So he did, and it passed. So I'm very happy about that.
Any other crime bills you want to highlight?
Yeah, so as Representative Joseph mentioned, we are in the minority party, and we're both freshmen. So collectively, I think we got more bills passed than, I want to say, our predecessors combined for probably a dozen years. No, and it's not a knock on anyone. It's just toward the end, it was sort of go slow, hurry up, and at the end we were like, we were, belaboring the dollars we didn't get for certain projects, the bills that we didn't get passed, the language we didn't like. But we had people like, you would think, oh, great job. No, people were like, no, listen, seriously. I had 3 standalone bills passed and 4 other bills that I had. The entire language were engrossed in others' bills. We don't have pride of authorship. So to have effectively 7 bills passed, you had 3 bills and some co-sponsors passed. We had a decent session relative to how bad some of the stuff started out. And one of the jobs, and I think Representative will speak to it briefly, there were good bills, there were bad bills, and if you engaged and didn't just say, no, I'm voting no against this, but actually engaged, we made several bad bills less bad. The 2 I can speak to.
We're going to get into those.
Okay.
All right.
As you were.
A little bit in terms of just more funding, and we're going to leave the funding alone for a second. Miami-Dade County got a total of $1 billion, close to $800 million dollars in the budget this time, and that's not just us. That's like the whole Miami-Dade delegation. So wanted to put that out there. The Florida Children's Initiative, which serves the district, got $500,000. Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, through the efforts of several folks in the Black Caucus, and Fine, Representative Fine, ended up with $24.8 million in the budget. And to put that in context, they have been fighting for like at least a decade for this money, and other schools would get it, and they just wouldn't. But we really put some feet to the fire and got it done. Foundation for Sickle Cell Disease Research got $100,000 in the budget, largely thanks to the efforts of Chevron Jones. Nova Southeastern University got $5 million in the budget to serve, to provide medical, dental, and vision and pharmacy services to the underserved population, which includes folks in our district. Moving right along, some other good bills that passed that originated here. There was one for infectious disease elimination, needle exchange program that was birthed out of the University of Miami. That made it through this time. There was a lot of pressure at the beginning. You heard about the dignity bill. Texting while driving finally passed as a primary offense. Before it was a secondary offense, so you had to be doing something else to get in trouble for texting while driving. Now you can just get in trouble for texting while driving. Now, let me just put this out there. We're also concerned about things like racial profiling. So we put some provisions in the bill to ensure that people are going to be monitoring that, to make sure that certain folks are not disproportionately affected. We got some relief for firefighters. The firefighter cancer bill, they basically get some relief if they're diagnosed with certain cancers. They get a one-time payment and other insurance benefits. You want to add anything to any of those before we jump on?
Nope.
All right. One other one that I co-sponsored was career technical education. So some people are college bound and some people are not. This just allows another path for high school graduation for those that aren't, and access to financial literacy courses in high schools. Here's some good bills. We're going to talk about the good ones, and then we're going to get to some of the not so positive ones. Sigh. All right, criminal justice reform. We did a lot of good stuff. You want to take that one?
Sure. As many of you know, I'm a former Miami-Dade prosecutor, and I handled a number of all types of cases. But toward the end, I started a gun violence initiative, and I had the pleasure of having lunch today with Dwayne Wade and Udonis Haslam. And Udonis was most concerned with, because he grew up in Liberty City, aren't there differences? You see all the. I said, yeah, Udonis, I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's very easy to jump on board with an assault rifles ban, background checks, NRA this, Second Amendment that. But you're all sitting in a county where the average age shooter right now is about 16. The average homicide victim is about 17, and 97% of the shootings are committed with handguns, not with semi or automatic rifles. We have a completely different problem. And we pass bills on mass shootings, and it's 3 or more, but young black men are killed 1 and 2 at a time. So it is, generally speaking, the attention and the rallies and the resources have all been pointed to things that make middle-class white soccer moms in minivans very happy. But that doesn't really reflect what's going on here in Miami-Dade County. And I've stood over the bodies of too many kids, 4 years old, 8 years old, and 12 years old, and I'm starting to express that dialogue. It is a completely different language to many of our colleagues in Central and Northern, and especially in the Panhandle. But they're receptive and willing to learn, because what's plaguing here, the social ills, the issues, the affordable housing and education, what's plaguing us here is unique to their environments, and they don't understand it or appreciate it. Which extends to a number of things, and I think Representative Joseph will get into. We thankfully passed the anti-Semitism bill, and it's not just on the content of being anti-Semitism, but showing that our colleagues are open to the idea of protecting those that have been discriminated upon. Just a couple days ago, one of Representative Joseph's colleagues was recorded as making a comment and a joke about passing legislation to execute gay men and women.
Why you got to be my colleague?
Because he's in the House.
He's, part of the legislature. He's your colleague, too.
However horrible and horrific those words are, I can't wait for us to refile a discrimination bill against LGBT. Basically, because you call out your colleagues and you say, you either vote for this or you're in his camp. And you have to have a little bit of, little vinegar and up there. Otherwise, you just kind of roll with it. So continue, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but as the criminal justice reform, there was a House version that was far more diluted from a criminal justice reform perspective than the Senate version. My colleague, Senator Brandis, although a Republican, is more of a libertarian, and really kind of is leading the leading force on criminal justice reform. There were considerations for gain time for certain crimes, but I will tell you, you want to know what applies to Miami Shores or what applies to Miami-Dade County. The threshold limit for grand theft has been raised from $300 to $750. Now, some people locally freaked out about it. We're always on Facebook. We're watching these meetings online. Florida hasn't changed that law since 1986. So they haven't adjusted for anything, neither for inflation or the reality of the times. And none of your smartphones are worth less than $750 retail, so you're all good. And I will tell you that, only New Jersey, where I was born, has a lower one of $200. Everyone else is around $1,000. There's no more HTO anymore unless it's underlying, what that is habitual traffic offenders. Many people, we have 410,000 uninsured motorists on the roadways, folks, in Miami-Dade County alone. They account for a lot of the traffic. I would just like a pathway for them to be licensed and insured, so if they T-bone one of us tragically, they can pay for it. And we're in a situation now where a great amount of people on the roadway are trying to get to work, trying to get a piece of whatever American dream they can, but they're uninsured and they're not licensed or registered to do so.
On that note, there was another bill that I filed that didn't go anywhere. It was one that changed the requirements for licensure to get your driver's license to allow for non-citizenship forms of ID, which used to be the case back in the day, and then they changed it basically to make it so that only U.S. citizens could get a license. The problem with that, for those who live in Miami-Dade County, there are lots of folks that aren't U.S. citizens that live here, and it's a safety issue. So they end up driving without taking any driver's tests, without having a driver's license, and because of those factors cannot get insurance. And who ends up paying for that? We do. But I'll just keep it moving. Okay, so smokable ban for marijuana. Oh, so just to put it in context about the raising the threshold for theft, that's significant. Most places have the threshold at anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. Florida's way behind the 8 ball on that. So what happens is people get these criminal records for like stupid stuff, like stealing, I don't know, some apples. But moving right along, let's go.
$301 worth of apples is a lot of apples.
That's a lot of apples.
That's a lot of
I mean,
apples.
you got kids
All
and stuff and the projects. All right, let me see.
What it does is it allows,
Everybody should spread the wealth.
locally, here's what it frees up. And I was thankful I was able to get a $500,000 for the Northside District in Miami-Dade County because we have a shooting there about every 39 hours and a death every 5 days. And we were able to get him $500,000 for Operation Blue and Brown. What it does is it allows people to give a promise to appear with a thumbprint on an arrest form instead of being transported to TGK facility. It saves thousands of dollars for small police departments and potentially millions of dollars for larger sheriff's departments, which should be, you guys should all pay attention to earmark for other things coming forward. It really reduces, the paddy wagons to the jails.
When there was a referendum back in the day to allow for use of marijuana, somebody in Tallahassee decided they wanted to be slick and take out the smokable portion of it. So everything else was legal except for the smokable portion, which is most of what people do. In any event, with pressure from the governor, that finally got corrected this time. So they removed that ban. We expanded access to prescription drugs from foreign sources, specifically sources that are reputable, regulated suppliers in Canada and elsewhere.
It still requires the approval of Health and Human Services in the federal government, which
Yep.
they have not done in 16 years. They've had the ability to do so since the 2003 Medicaid expansion. But there's a new appointee, so perhaps they will, but it has to be vetted through that process. And conversely, you have to understand that we've really neglected our prison population and our poor. There's a tremendous hepatitis. I'm sorry if we're just, you can cut us off at any time and ask any specific questions. We're just trying to give you a recount. But there's a large hepatitis outbreak in the prison population that has gone untreated, which continues to add to more costs, so it's about prevention as well and treatment.
Okay, we're going to skim through some of this. Florida Kid Care expands coverage, healthcare coverage for kids that are 18 and under in low and middle income families. Here's some things we fought back against successfully. There's a whole lot more, but just to highlight two. Miami-Dade County, along with several other counties throughout the state of Florida, decided that because Tallahassee failed to adequately fund their traditional public schools, they would tax themselves to fund those schools. Well, the folks in Tallahassee decided they tried to do a money grab and say, nope, we're going to take that money. And we're like, no, not on our watch. So we fought and fought and fought, and then we negotiated down to, okay, it'll happen, but it's not going to happen until, it's not going to happen retroactively. It's going to happen only going forward, prospectively. But then they tried to say, well, that's going to be okay, but everybody but Miami-Dade County. And we're like, not on our watch. So we pushed some more, and then finally, it is what it is for now until we can change it and make sure they can't reach into that bag.
So it was attached to the tax package that it was on, and then it was off, and then it was on, and then it was off. And literally holding, you can go back and see on the video, I'm holding my phone, reading a text from Arida on the floor to make sure that I fashioned the question correctly to Senator Kelly Stargell, and I said, I just want to be clear. All those dollars, specifically Miami-Dade, that passed referendum, overwhelmingly to fund traditional public schools with money, will stay with those schools, and if there's ever a sharing or proportionate share arrangement, it would come with a subsequent referendum. And she said, I couldn't have said it better myself. I said, thank you. A lot of these times you have to memorialize what the legislative intent is while it's being recorded, so you can go back and say, no, that's not what you said. So I'm sure I think you're going to be speaking tonight? No?
No, she's just here for decoration.
Not on this, okay. But
All right.
let me say this. There's a large division between two camps. One is those that advocate for charter schools and using private school voucher money, and those that are in the camp of traditional public schools. I will tell you, the Doctor's Charter, and some of you have seen me on Facebook trying to ask this question and poll it. Doctor's Charter was one of the 6 schools that are truly municipal charters that do not shop out to a for-profit third-party company. Aventura gives $66 million to the Miami-Dade Public School District, and they don't get any of this money. Doctor's Charter is in a unique position in the sense that it's not shopped out to Academica or a third-party for-profit, which I express the same because I sit on the Education Appropriation Subcommittee. And what I wanted to get a reading of is there were a number of charter schools that sent home notices to parents saying, don't vote for this because we're not going to get any money. Doctor's Charters was not one of those schools. And it was a specific question I asked. I even asked a few reporters that did stories on it. You guys were not. What I'm hopeful of is the large amount of resources that are being allocated to schools now for school hardening. And obviously you guys hopefully have all read that, yes, there are school districts that can opt in to arming teachers. Miami-Dade is not one of them, nor will it ever be. I think there's 25 that were in consideration and maybe somewhat expanded. But in return, even though we're opting out, places like Miami Shores, Doctor's Charter certainly need a school resource officer. And the ask there was $120,000. We're going to try to see if there's funding available on the hardening level to be able to address that.
All right. Anti-sanctuary cities bill. Basically, it forces local law enforcement to be kind of extended immigration officers. You're forced to detain them beyond up to 48 hours beyond what you're constitutionally allowed to. There are lots of legal issues into it. There's probably going to be litigation. I'm not going to get into it, but these are things that we fought against, but they passed anyway because they could. Arming teachers. It expanded the Guardian program to include instructional personnel. The good side is that it has to be approved by the school board and the local sheriff.
Just one quick point on the sanctuary cities bill, because you'll read a bunch of different things about it. The process in the program is already in place. And when I was a prosecutor, if somebody came in and they had an immigration detainer, they were held for 48 hours, and if the federal government or an agency wanted to pick them up, then so be it. There was just never a formal agreement or a memorandum of understanding or even a contract between the parties. In fact, we would go times where we were $4 or $5 million in the hole at the county level, holding people under corrections and housing them at $150 a day and never getting reimbursed from the federal government. The argument I made is, at the least we can do is have FEMA start paying us for some of our hurricane damage if we're going to go ahead and foot the bill for them and give them free housing. This goes to a bad bill that was made less bad because we engaged. There was only one out of the 56 or 57, I think, total amendments that were filed by Democrats to make some amendment to this bill. Only mine was accepted unanimously. And I called for enumerating a large number of serious felony crimes and that the victims and witnesses in those crimes shall basically be excluded from this and protected and have protected status. And that's very important, and I had to appeal to my colleagues by saying, your granddaughter could be raped, your wife could be robbed, your son could be killed. And very often the witnesses to those crimes are undocumented immigrants. And we certainly don't want to send the message that they shouldn't feel comfortable. With the Super Bowl coming to our region, human trafficking is a very real thing. It may sometimes sound vogue for people to use as a campaign platform or a pleasantry while in discussion. It's very real. We very much have, and I was a witness to a criminal case and testified against a John who was running a ring of 15-year-old girls holding men in armed robbery at gunpoint and taking jewelry and taking cash. It's very real. And it's very real here, and we are the epicenter for that activity. So that's one really bad bill that codified something which is already existing. I called out the Senate sponsor on the floor and said this is about optics and it's a proxy for a 2020 national election. But we'll call it what it is. It's not an organic bill that someone felt strongly about. But I was very happy to capture 20-plus felony crimes and that the victims and witnesses of those crimes are protected.
By the way, a similar amendment was offered on the House and rejected. All of the amendments in the House, protecting, so just so you know, some of the amendments that were offered on our side, protecting people who are recipients of temporary protected status, DACA, deferred action for childhood arrivals, for victims of crimes, for refugees, target, and let me add a caveat to something the senator said. Contrary to what the messaging has been around this bill, the undocumented population is actually much less likely to be involved in any criminal activity than anybody else.
There's 4,600 imprisoned, undocumented, well, not now documented, but at the time undocumented aliens in our state prison system. That accounts to 0.57% of the 800,000 in population of the state of Florida. However, there are 263,769 Floridians who are currently imprisoned or under probation, which is 1.23%. So the argument was made on the floor that we have an immigration crisis and they're raping and killing and pillaging. I challenged the senator and said it's that same crisis that cooks our food, builds our home, and cuts our lawn, sir, and they're 2.5 times less likely to actually commit a violent crime.
All right, so I'm just going to stop there because I feel like we've given you a lot of
Sorry.
information, and just throw in one last one that we'd be remiss not to include, and that is some election reform. They did some positive things in terms of election reform, expanding the period that you can cure your ballot and those kinds of things, but there are some neutral things and some negative things. The main negative thing is what they did with Amendment 4. Most people know that that was the referendum that was passed by a majority of Floridians from all around to
5.1
say, yep, that we want people who've paid their time, served their time to be able to vote. The legislatures decided they needed to implement legislation which basically undermines the will of the voters, but require the financial obligation to be met before that right to vote be restored. There will be litigation, and since my counterpart here negotiated some stuff, I'll let you add whatever you want to. We're gonna do our best to try to make make the best out of a not so good situation.
So to everyone have a quick little civics lessons from 6th grade. There's 3 branches of government: the federal government, and the same in the state of Florida. We have 2 houses inside of the legislature. We have a judicial branch and we have an executive branch. I was the freshman, so I didn't want to be presumptuous, but I just went ahead and did it anyway. I wrote a letter to the Attorney General, and I said, can you please define sentence? Because the Attorney General represents the executive branch and any interpretation of the laws therein. Never got a response. Saw her 5 times afterwards, and, she's like, I can't really respond. I go, that's okay. But, we know where you stand. As it relates to the judicial branch, even though I had a nice relationship with one of the new appointees of the Florida Supreme Court, I know the bent of the latest 3 appointees and the shifting of the court. So when the governor-elect at the time, DeSantis, said, I'd like to see an implementing bill from the legislature, I was in the same camp of people that, and I wrote an editorial for the Miami Herald a few weeks ago on this too, that I was in the same camp of outrage saying, no, it's not necessary. It's res ipsa loquitur. It speaks for itself. However, you take the real look at the fact that you have an executive branch that will have no oversight because it's subject to the interpretation of the Attorney General, who won't by statute, I'm authorized to ask for an opinion and didn't respond. You have the executive branch, you have the judicial branch, and one of my last trials to verdict was in front of Judge Luck, who's a fantastic jurist and a principled guy and one of the smartest men you'll ever meet. But I know what his position is on certain things as it relates to Category 1 lessers that come under jury form. This is a little technical, I'm sorry. So my position that I found us in was, listen, if the menu's gonna be created, we should have some say in what we have to eat. And so we really didn't have pride of authorship on a number of these things, but I will tell you that the last couple amendments, I wrote the language that went into the last couple amendments to Amendment 4, allowing the court greater access to open up old cases, interpretations of being able to do conversion on certain things. I'm very proud to tell you that on Friday at 2 o'clock in the Miami-Dade County Courthouse, we will be joined by Desmond Meade and Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, the League of Women Voters, the Circuit Court, the State Attorney's Office, the Public Defender, Regional Counsel, Florida Department of I called everybody into a room. We're all going to sit in a courtroom and do a dress rehearsal to how these cases are going to work. I have a very ambitious number of cases that I want to get resolved and get going. We excluded a few parties that are a little partisan and a little too, litigious in nature, but I have a very ambitious number that I want to hit. We have 158,242 eligible returning citizens in Miami-Dade County, and any number of elections that you voted on this past November would have been, the outcomes would have been greatly different had 9% of that group been able to vote. And this is not an apathetic bunch. There's millions of Floridians that are registered to vote that don't. But this is not an apathetic bunch. This is a bunch of people that really want to get back into it. It's a bill that, on its face, seems bad and seems obstructionist, but certain words that are in there are subject to interpretation, and since we are the largest county in the state of Florida, I would like to get a working model up Friday afternoon, and we can repiplicate it within the other 19 judicial circuits.
All right, well, thank you for
Thank you.
being so gracious and allowing us to give you the update.
Thank you. That was good.
And congratulations to the
Congratulations.
re-elected and newly elected.
you.
We're so
Thank
proud
you.
of you, like we can't even tell you. And the ones I haven't really gotten to interact with, I look forward to chatting with you some more.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I,
Yes.
Senator Pizzo?
Yes.
Sitting in the
Oh,
back
give me
is
the-
Dr. Kelly Andrews. She's the Executive Director of Doctors Charter School. I'd love to.
Hi, Dr. Kelly. I'm going to give her my cell phone number as I walk out.
You have to hear our presentation.
Okay. I'll be happy to.
Well,
Okay.
I forgot one thing. My aide is going to be here if you want to sign up for a committee to deal with either economic development, environmental, education, affordable housing, or criminal justice reform in the district. She will be here. Here's the sign-up sheet. I have to go to my little sister's graduation, so I can't stick around, but I love you all.
Congratulations.
I'll leave cards for anybody that wants them. And I also failed to mention, we're having the Secretary of the Department of Transportation come down here next month to spend an entire day in a workshop session. And how we're going to do it is break it up with charrettes of elected officials from our Senate district. We'll be able to meet privately to discuss particular issues, and then it's an open forum for the public. Relations with our predecessors were not the best as it relates to certain state agencies and conveying information back and certain concerns. And there's a number of FDOT issues from the county line that we have all the way south, the beach and Biscayne and Miami Shores and et cetera, et cetera. So I'll leave my,
Trying to sneak a picture.
I'm gonna take a picture, so I can't sneak around, but I
Okay, just do it real quick and we'll go.
gonna make Dottie look tall?
No, get up
Okay,
here.
sorry.
I was sitting on the side,
Is she really gonna do this right now?
I guess she is. No, you don't, just, what are you doing? Just,
I don't know.
okay, great.
Okay. I'll leave cards here.
I apologize.
You need a card?
She's gonna take it for you. She's going to school.
Okay, Jason. I just never really like staging it. Sorry, guys.
I made a campaign promise that I would not come back and just do photo ops and proclamations.
We're not doing photo ops.
Okay, all right.
These are our things. Thank you so much for hearing us.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate that update. Appreciate it. Before we head into public comments, we have Erida here from the district, from Alberto Cavallo's office, and I'd like to give her an opportunity to present, because I know she has other obligations this evening. So if you'd like to come to the podium, thank you very much.
So on your agenda, Madam Mayor, there is Resolution 8A, which authorizes the development of an IPREP fifth grade program and a school-wide Cambridge International Curriculum Program at Miami Shores Elementary School, and urging the approval of that item.
Yes. And we'd love to have you speak to that item or give some insight before we go into.
Well, the Cambridge program is an internationally recognized educational course of study based on academic rigor. In the primary years, it focuses on young learners aged 5 through 11, and they develop confident, responsible, reflective, innovative, and engaged learners. The program also provides professional development and training for our young, for our teachers. And I have Dr. Lisette Rodriguez, Administrative Director for Academics, and I have Ms. Allison Ibar, who actually manages and oversees the Cambridge program implementation district-wide. So if you have, the council has specific questions on the program and on the implementation, be glad to answer those.
I know you have somewhere to be, but I'd like to ask my council if they have any questions that they'd like to
Absolutely.
direct to you
That's
directly.
why we're here.
So, awesome. Vice Mayor Birch?
I think one of the interesting things is that locally, none of us have exposure to the Cambridge program, and we wonder about the advantages of implementation in the younger grades versus the older grades. So we're looking to maximize the benefit of introducing this program early on.
So
Hi, I'm Allison Ibarra. I'm the supervisor of the Cambridge and IB program in the district. To talk about what you are asking, the advantage is Cambridge is basically a pathway. So it starts in elementary school. We want our students to continue that development through middle school and move on to a high school program. So the benefits really of starting this at the elementary level is so that the students are introduced and to the attributes, to the rigor of the academics, and that way they can continue through the program, through middle school and through high school, and hopefully earn the prestigious Cambridge diploma, which brings with it a lot of financial advantages for families, which students who earn the diploma get the Fulbright Future Scholarship without the SAT and GPA requirement. And so that is a huge benefit because it covers 100% of tuition at any state university in Florida.
So, can you tell me what percentage, or let's talk about the student who has gone through this program, let's say at Miami Shores Elementary, and now they're in the feeder pattern, let's say to Horace Mann,
Right.
or to our charter school. So, what advantages does that student demonstrate according to your
Well,
data?
I mean, in terms of the way that maybe the Cambridge program differs a little bit from the regular curriculum, it's more globally minded. So we have students that will engage in curriculum that will allow them to look at themselves in terms of what are global issues happening in the world from a personal, local, and global perspective, which I think is really wonderful because it kind of broadens our horizons here for our students, and they're able, to be better learners and more globally minded as they move into adulthood.
And that, one more, that AICE diploma
Yes.
is a very prestigious diploma? that-
Correct. It's attached to the well, I mean, they work Cambridge with University of Cambridge
Yes.
in England.
So, in your experience in Miami-Dade County, what percentage of the students who go through the Cambridge program actually achieve the diploma? Do you know that?
Well, I don't know. We have 433 students last year in 2018. Those seniors earned the Cambridge diploma, so we're talking about 433 students that are also getting the Bright Futures Scholarship and able to realize their post-secondary dreams.
Councilman Brady, you have any questions? Councilman Lafredo?
Yes, if we were to pass this tonight, would you all be able to implement this program starting in the upcoming school year?
Absolutely, because what my position is that I supervise the schools, I oversee implementation, we assist in professional development for the teachers so that they can, successfully implement it in the classrooms and the schools, and so we provide at the district level that type of support.
Over the years, I've heard many educators say that to implement a new program or to step into a new school, let's say, it takes an average of 3 years to see a difference.
Yes.
And so you're nodding your head, you agree with that.
Yeah.
And so is it fair for us to understand that we need to be patient when implementing this program to see how it fits with Miami Shores Elementary in particular?
Yes, I mean, I think, with anything, the first year, they're getting to know the program. Second year, they're perfecting implementation. By the third year, it should be, very functioning. So, yes, be patient, but I have seen schools where administration has been 100% bought in, where I've seen schools transform in a full year in terms of really, investing in the program and having full buy-in. You're welcome.
Yeah, well, I have you. Say this were to go forward, what types of measurements for success do we put into something like this? Like, how are we going to follow up on how well the program is going for our school
Okay.
at the elementary level?
When we look at at data at the elementary and middle school level, it's a little bit difficult because we don't require our schools to take checkpoint exams, which is a possibility. There is a possibility to engage in that. That would be an extra expense, but you can certainly do that. However, what we have seen more philosophically, schools that adopt this program, students are more mentally and socially well, because there is a huge component, philosophical component, that they are instructing the whole child, not just academically. So you have the academic side where you can checkpoint your students to see about the academic rigor, but then, you also have, you talk to students, they become more confident. We've seen, students who have been shy, who now are engaging more with other students and with teachers. So you have those two components.
Thank you. Along those same lines, are there measurements and or accountability that we can hold the teachers to? I mean, how do we mark the success as we go forward? I know you're saying there's nothing in line, there's,
Right.
who wouldn't pay for the children, but how do we hold those teaching the children around the Cambridge program accountable?
I mean,
Or is that possible, I suppose?
I don't say that it's impossible. We don't have something in place right now to do that. However, we do monitor the schools regularly. We visit the schools to see that implementation is taking place. And, we observe classrooms. I've been engaged with this program for 13 years as a teacher and a parent, now as a supervisor. So I can really see if something is working or not, and be able to help, assist teachers to implement it a little bit better, to get the results that they're looking for.
Okay, and when you say regularly, is that quarterly? Is it once a semester? Is it in the spring?
It would be
fall?
quarterly, because
Okay.
we do have 70 programs in 80 schools, and there's myself, and I have a curriculum support specialist, so there's two of us. So we typically will visit every school 2 to 3 times regularly, and then possibly more if the school is requiring more professional development or more assistance, in terms of implementation.
Okay. My second question would be if, there are situations within our village where we have Miami Shores residents who live outside of the boundaries. And is there something, path forward, having said that we passed this, is there a path forward to be able to get those residents who would like to be a part of our boundary because they're Miami Shores residents, is there a pathway for them to get there?
Currently, we've had this discussion with the manager when we met, and with the village attorney. There is currently a process. The school district addresses the attendance boundaries of all of our schools on an annual basis. It would be simple sending a letter to the superintendent requesting that the certain area that is outside of the school's attendance boundaries to be looked at, and a recommendation that be included. But in addition to that, from a practical standpoint, statutorily, there is legislation that if their school has capacity, and I believe the school does have some capacity, then transfers have to be approved. So having access to the school by village residents should not be a problem.
Mayor, can I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
I understood the advantage of starting an elementary school and processing to a middle school and ultimately a high school. It's Cambridge. If this council goes with a Cambridge program for our elementary school, what would be the middle school options for when the children
Right.
graduate
So-
to stay in Cambridge?
So right now, Horace Mann Middle School is in your feeder pattern as a middle school. Moving on to high school would be Edison Senior. However, right, we do have other Cambridge high schools. We have 13 of them. So we have American Senior, Hialeah Gardens, for example, Ronald Reagan and Doral. So there are several high schools in Miami-Dade. So, technically if they don't want to go to one, they could have the possibility to go to another.
Rhonda, we work together on the education compact for Miami Shores, and as I credit you, you have worked on those compacts with many other municipalities in the county. So my question goes toward that compact and how we now have an education advisory board that is trying to implement it. how have other cities done when they've implemented a program like Cambridge? Has that boosted the other aspects of the compact?
Engagement with the municipality and so on.
Well,
Thank you.
there's different models of engagement. Some municipalities that have an education compact do not have an education advisory committee, and the management simply works with school district management through my office to see things come to fruition that the community may want to see happen in their schools. Some have full education advisory committees that meet on a monthly basis, so it runs the gambit. You have municipalities through their education compacts, like the city of Miami Beach, that funds an IB program citywide for all the schools within its boundaries. You have North Bay Village that funds IB for the one and only elementary schools within their boundaries. So it runs the gambit. And you know, if you're interested in more detail about the 20 education compacts that we actually have in place, it's on our website. All of our contracts are in place. And education compacts, as you know, are just the start of a relationship. It's the codification of a relationship that should be going forward. And I'd like to set a measurement of 3 things that are achievable in 1 year, that we can improve the educational quality in that community on an annual basis. And then once we achieve those, we move on to the next thing. And so it's supposed to be always moving. It's supposed to be always fluid and vibrant to address the educational needs of each respective community. As we know, Miami-Dade is quite diverse, and those needs change over time.
Thank you.
Coming back to my original question, I'm just trying to,
Right.
because we're, you know, if this item moves forward, we're coming out of village coffers for some of this, and I want to make sure that when we're spending our money, that it's being accounted for. So when I want to rephrase my question a little bit. Instructional review. Instructional review of the program. Is that something that also happens quarterly, and is that also something that you all do internally? And once we have that instructional review, do we get a report back on outcomes and what is presumed to be the outcomes or the upside?
At this
Thank you.
time, we don't have something quantitatively like that in place. However, you know, when we do come out and visit, we would be observing classrooms, and we would be meeting with administration to discuss, you know, the positives and the challenges and things that may need improvement that way to move the program.
And then presumably we would be able to have some feedback on how that's
Absolutely.
going as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the council? Mr. Manager?
Yes, ma'am. Just one question for Rida. It's our understanding after our meeting with Mr. Serafan and I that we need to pass this tonight, and you need to let the teachers know tomorrow, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In order for
All right.
implementation for the 1920 school year, we need to advise the teachers before they go on vacation or school summer break that there will be training over the summer months, because I know that the office has already reached out to Cambridge to ensure the availability of training during the summer to ensure that implementation can begin the first day of school.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you. We'll go back to our regular agenda. We'll start with presentations. We would ask that you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, but before we do that, we have Dr. Andrews is here to do her presentation on doctor's charters.
It's just public comment.
Oh, it's just public comment? Okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
Kelly Andrews, Doctor's Charter School on Northwest Fifth Avenue. I'm the executive director, and we graduated 78 students out of 78 students on Sunday at Berry University. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the class of 2019. They are all matriculating out to 25 different institutions, three branches of the military, and 22 universities or colleges. But one thing that we didn't talk about at graduation that I really wanted to point out today was that of these 78 students, 2 students received the Questbridge Scholars. And I want to tell you a little bit about that. Nationally, there are only 1,000 Questbridge Scholars. 2 of them came from DCS this year. That means they get a full ride, no loan, 4-year guaranteed scholarship to the school of their choice anywhere in the country. They're going to Amherst College and Rice University, Massachusetts and Texas. Full ride. And so the other things that I wanted to let you know is 60% of our students have been with DCS since the 6th grade. Over 70% of the class participate in dual enrollment, advanced placement, and honors levels classes. We did have many of our seniors participate in international travel. One actually went all 4 years and saw over 12 countries. The class of 2019 received over 200 letters of acceptance to the colleges and universities of where they applied. And collectively, they received a total of $4,927,468. They're going to places like Albany State, Amherst, Berry, Broward, Duke University, Florida Gulf Coast, Florida Atlantic, Florida International, Florida A&M, Nova Southeastern, University of Central Florida, University of Florida, Florida State, Tallahassee Community College, Johnson & Wales, Lynn University, Miami-Dade College, Penn State University, Rhodes College, Rice University, Spelman College, Valencia College, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Coast Guard, and the U.S. Air Force. So this is a really big deal for our school because last year the class of 18 earned $1.8 million, so to move to 4.9 was an incredible feat for this class of students. It's exciting. They were a very close-knit group of students, and now they're going out into the world as DCS alumni. So thank you to the community for supporting our school and making sure that your arms are wrapped around them all the time. I appreciate Senator Pizzo and all of the folks who are working behind the scenes and in Tallahassee to help us move things forward in those ways as well. And I have several board members here today that I'm really proud to say that have supported us throughout the year to make sure that we're getting what we need and moving the kids forward. So it's, you know, we talked about how much time it takes to make a difference, and this is my 3rd year, and I'm starting to see things move forward, and I'm really proud of the school. So thank you very much.
I'd like to say I was at the commencement ceremony. It was beautifully done, but more importantly, the kids are so inspirational. So I commend you and I commend the board members. It was just a wonderful morning and a wonderful afternoon, and they were so excited, and I was excited to be there with them. So thank you. Well done.
Madam Mayor, I would like to commend you for your speech and for the ability, your unique ability to reach out to those students. I'm sure it meant a lot to them, and it was a great service for our village to do for our school. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Okay, now we'll start with public presentation. Public comment. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Ice.
Hi, my name is John Ice, 118 Northeast 102nd Street. I rise in support of the implementing the Cambridge model and the iPrep program, both within Miami Shores Elementary. I think this is probably one of the most important votes that you will take this year. I think that whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids, you improve a school, you improve the community. And fair or not, I think Miami Shores Elementary has a perception problem. Based upon a survey, there's a perception that it lacks academic rigor. This curriculum goes directly to that. And if we are able to implement this, support this, market this, I think the measure of success of Miami Shores residents voluntarily sending their kids to the school, that alone will have a profound impact on improving that school. So I think that this is extremely important, and I urge your support.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Oh. Okay. Susan Ackley, 1119 Northeast 99th Street. I do support the school initiative, but I'm speaking on behalf of the Fine Arts Commission. You will be considering later a cooperative agreement between our village and the county, and I wanted to remind council that this project will extend throughout the village, west side as well as east side. We do have the budget, and we do have an artist. So I would appreciate your support when you vote later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Stephanie Daniel. I live at 273 Northwest 91st Street. I am one of those parents who pays Miami Shores taxes, and my child is not zoned for Miami Shores Elementary, and that's my concern. I'm an educator. I'm employed by the public school system. I'm a teacher. I'm fully in support of the educational programs. That's not the concern. My concern is my tax dollars are going to something that my children are specifically precluded from based on their address. My concern is, while we can do some backdoor things and do open enrollment, if it functions how it's supposed to and more village residents send their children to the school, my children then would no longer qualify for the, oh, we have space, we'll take you. That's basically what the district proposed is, if we have space, we'll take you. Well, if the program does really well, there is no space. So then my children, who live currently zoned for Sibley, would then not be allowed to attend. That is the concern that I'm expressing. I've expressed this concern for over 60 days in writing to the village manager. My apologies for some of you who maybe heard about it for the first time today, but that is what I am bringing to the table. There are some of us who are zoned for a different elementary school, and in the compact, maybe the agreement needs to be amended to say it needs to be contingent, the funding, the money needs to be contingent upon ensuring, guaranteeing, regardless of attendance, the enrollment of all students who are Miami Shores residents.
Yes, go ahead.
Council, we cannot include language in the contract pursuant to school board policy. There's an attendance boundary committee and a policy to modify the attendance boundaries for all of our schools. So we cannot enter into a contract that would supersede school board policy that is in fact in place and adopted by the local school board. However, again, the transfer policy still exists, and two, the city can or the village can send a letter to the superintendent requesting that the attendance boundary be modified to include the entire village.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Well,
Y'all could
you,
step outside.
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
I'm
okay.
curious about
Had
other
your 3
interlocal
minutes.
agreements.
Okay, you can have a conversation separately.
Perfect,
Thank you.
Carol Hoffman Guzman, 171 Northeast 102nd Street. I am the newest member of the Arts Commission, the Fine Arts Commission, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I think it's an incredible program, and the newest one of decorating utility boxes is very impressive. I haven't ever seen that anywhere before. I've been in the arts for 50 years in Denver and in Miami Beach and now here, and I just recommend that you go forward with all this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Have anyone else who wants to come to the podium? Thank you.
My name's Deirdre Funchen. I live at 8745 Northeast 4th Avenue Road. I am a parent of a student who currently goes to Miami Shores Elementary School, and I have no idea whether the Cambridge program is great or horrible. I have no idea if iPrep is great or horrible, but as a parent of a child who goes there, I didn't get a packet sent home. I happened to see something about this on Facebook, And so I'm concerned with the way that some of this stuff is communicated to parents. I asked my son's teacher if she knew that this was happening. She said she had heard something about it, but it wasn't a done deal. I looked at the memo that was attached to the materials for today. The teachers, the reason this is being rushed through tonight is that the teachers need to be told that they need to come back to school early, and they're going to get paid $100 a day for training. Sorry, I'm not a good public speaker. But so I'd like to speak up on behalf of the teachers. I think that that's a little bit rushed. I don't know if they've had a chance to object or understand the curriculum. I don't know if my kid's going to have 2-hour blocks of time next year. I have no idea what this curriculum is because it was barely communicated to any of the parents. So I would just like, I know some of you are new, and I would love to see more and better communication. You know, a lot of people are on Facebook, and I feel like it's very hit or miss of what parents, the information that parents are given. Generally speaking, I'm a little skeptical of giving money to consultants, you know, for programs that parents haven't had a chance to say anything about, teachers haven't had a chance to say anything about. So again, nothing against the program, I don't feel like it was very well aired. And so just take that into consideration when you make your vote.
Thank you.
Mayor Wagner, council members, my name is Gavin Rushmore McPhail. I live at 162 Northeast 109th Street. I advocated for some of these changes in a prior meeting that MAC hosted here with you all, and I just want to echo your comments. I was sitting outside. From my understanding, and I know it seems rushed and things happen quickly and so many moving parts for all of us focused with work and children, and it's hard to keep up, but I commend you for what you're doing, and I continue to advocate for the acceptance of you know, this program. I think it'd be wonderful. I'm a father of a 4.5-year-old daughter, so thank you.
Thank you.
I also hate public speaking, but I wanted to voice my opinion. My name's Nadia. I live at 10350 93rd Street. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm familiar with IB, and it's amazing. It's project-based, and it makes the children good citizens. I'm a teacher also, and I think this will be amazing. Even if it has to be rushed, if that's the opportunity we have, I think it will be great. I would love that for my children.
Nadia, can we have your last name for the record?
Pallais, P-A-L-L-A-I-S.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dana Vignali, 9525 Northwest First Court, Miami Shores. I'm also a member of the Education Advisory Board Committee. We're very grateful that this committee was formed by the Village Council, and I think it's a great opportunity to work together between the school board, the school, as well as the Village Council. We're thrilled that this is kind of the fruits of our labor of getting some feedback from the local community to help drive some of these initiatives. We had over 172 responses in the survey. We got quite a bit of feedback. I also launched the Cambridge programs at Mass Academy, and as an educator for 18 plus years, I can assure you that it's an incredible program, K through 12. It promotes problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, more of a collaborative model, a little bit more outside of the traditional delivery of curriculum. What I really appreciate about what has been included in the budget has been the extensive training for teachers. Teacher quality was also one of the #1 things that drive parents to choose schools, and that was reflected in our survey as well. As a teacher as well, I always appreciated the additional training when there were additional asks. Also to bring to the attention for the teacher's sake, because I will always advocate for teachers, is there have also been additional stipends included into the budget that help mitigate the additional responsibilities. We recognize that it's critically important to have the teacher buy-in, as well as the school site leadership buy-in, and as well as parents. I think in time, once this passes, I'm confident, and I know I'll work with the EAB to have more informational sessions to share this information with the community. It's just, it's tough to roll things out and communicate to all parties at the same time, especially when it hasn't been board approved. So keep your eyes and ears open. The EAB will work very hard to help the communication process from the school board as well as the village council so that we can keep everybody apprised of the progress. And there's quite a bit of great progress happening at Shores Elementary that's worth celebrating. So thank you very much again for your support, and I hope that you'll vote in favor of the program.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, thank you. Public comment is now closed.
Item 6A, approval of the May 21st, 2019 Village Council meeting minutes.
Madam Mayor, I'll move the minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 7A, Doctors Charter School Board appointments. There are 4 vacancies. The village clerk's office received 4 applications from Hunt Davis, Clarice Codsey, Rebecca Murray, and Christian Olvert.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I don't want to deprive these 4 excellent candidates of the right to speak in front of the council, but they're 4 excellent, excellent people. And I don't know if I'm out of line, but I would move that we approve them by acclamation.
Do I have a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Appointments are passed. Hey, congratulations.
Item 8A, a resolution of the Village Council of Miami Shores Village, Florida, supporting the implementation of an IPREP 5th grade program and a school-wide Cambridge International Curriculum program at Miami Shores Elementary School, urging the Miami-Dade County Public Schools Board to approve the program for Miami Shores Elementary, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date. Staff on this item is the village manager.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, would you like to speak to the item?
Madam Mayor, as you heard from school board staff here tonight, you have before you a resolution to approve the transfer of funds of $96,922 to support a IPREP Cambridge program at Miami Shores Elementary. And as you also heard tonight, we need to approve this tonight in order for us to implement it in the next upcoming school year. I think we've talked about all the points that I had included in my memo to council. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm sure between us we'll do our best. And of course, Mr. Serafan and I need to meet with school board officials and work out a memo of understanding or an interlocal agreement and hammer out all the fine points. But essentially, what you've heard tonight from school board staff, we're going to implement the IPREP Cambridge program next school year. I also included in your package the budget that was provided to us, where it's sort of a sliding scale downward. The first year is the most expensive, followed by year 2 at $67,592, year 3 $59,592, and it goes from there.
Thank you. Mr. Serafin?
One thing I wanted to ask, because there were so many questions asked about metrics. Generally, in an agreement like this, we'd like to see performance metrics so that we're not stuck in an agreement that's not working for us. And in our discussions with the school board, it was made clear that although metrics are not necessarily workable, the solution is that there'll be a provision that gives the village a right to cancel without cause, so we don't, even in the absence of metrics, we're not going to get stuck in an agreement that doesn't work for us. That's the first point I wanted to make. The second point is I wanted to make it clear, more so for the people in the audience who may not have read the memoranda, the IPREP portion of it, because of the nature of IPREP and the fact this is an elementary school, is going to be 5th grade only, and it's going to be optional for students to elect whether they want to, or their parents, to elect whether or not they want to participate in that piece of it. So I just want to make that point as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Comments from the council. Mr. Lafredo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I heard someone comment about new members of the council. I just want to clarify for the record, all 3 of my children went to Miami Shores Elementary, and we started it was a shambles, and when we left it, it was an A school nationally ranked. And that involves community input, it involves council participation and support at all levels. One of the reasons I ran for office was I thought that, with all respect to the predecessor councils, they hadn't been giving the commitment and support to the principal and the staff of the school, which is constantly needed. It's constantly needed. I know that Councilman Brady started the Education Advisory Committee, and I know Alice has been laboring in the salt mines of education for 20 years. But, the other thing, speaking of the salt mines of education, there was something called the Miami Shores Berry University Charter School. It was the second charter school in the state. You're looking at the attorney for that school, which we started with it with Bill Heffernan and Mr. Charles Cobb back in the wee days. So I know a little bit about education, and it's gone on, the baton has been picked up by other people. But that said, I think this is a great opportunity for our school and for our parents, and so I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Councilman Brady?
No, I would just echo Councilman Lafredo. I also have a son at Miami Shores Elementary right now, daughter that will be going there in the next couple of years. And I know that my mom was a teacher there for many, many years. Both my younger, right? Yeah, both my younger brothers went there. I went to St. Rose because we moved to Miami Shores when I was already going to St. Rose. So, but I just also will absolutely be supporting this, something we've been working toward for a while, and I think it's a really big part of really driving additional community engagement in the school. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Birch?
I think education is such a challenge for many districts and municipalities around Miami-Dade County. It is a challenge. We do need to stay tuned, and we do at times need to take risks and step out. And we're an excellent indicator of how a small village can do that. Because in 2003, we took the bull by the horns and passed a referendum and tilted up the walls of our own school.
Right.
And that's grades 6 through 12. And so what is the missing piece? And Miami Shores Elementary should not be considered in that way. It's to be considered that we can't leave it out of the planning. And I do think that as we turn our attention to other matters in government, that it's an easy thing to necessarily, especially going through economic changes, that it's a rather easy thing to leave out. And I also know that both in education making changes and in government moving things forward, the process is slower than maybe some of us would like to admit, being part of either one of them. And so I would like to applaud tonight the people who applied for the board and are going to be part of the charter school board, the people who continue to serve on the charter school board that was set up quite right many years ago. And not to be too much of a historian, but just today, Lisette M. Reed was named federal magistrate judge in downtown Miami. And I'd like to applaud Lisette Reed because she worked in concert with the village attorney back at that time and crafted the bylaws and worked with all of us on the handbook for that school. So that tells you a little bit of something about the formative stages of something in education. It's hard work and it takes buy-in, and we can't guarantee it. We can't guarantee the buy-in and we can't guarantee the results, and yet we'll work toward that because I think you're hearing a unanimous voice that we want to be part of the success of Miami Shores Elementary.
Thank you. I think this is exciting. I believe that you cannot put a price on the importance of educating our children, particularly when it's our community. I really believe if we've got the momentum and we get going, time is now to get started. It doesn't mean it's panacea, and it doesn't mean we end the negotiation, but it means we start. We start the conversation and we move forward, and all in a collaborative effort to make sure that the children of our community are getting what we think they deserve. Not to mention, I have several friends. I was at the 5th grade graduation at Miami Shores Elementary this morning because I have several very close friends of mine whose children were leaving, 4 in fact. And it was wonderful. And those kids are going to go on to do successful and wonderful things in our community. So I see what's there. I see what's there already, and I look forward to adding to that, adding to the foundation that's already there. Not to mention, when our schools are successful in our community, it only enhances the value of our community. It benefits our community as a whole. So I am very excited about this. I'm excited to be a part of it. I thank the Education Compact Board, the EAB, that's been working so hard and diligently on it. We had a packed meeting. I showed up last night. People had lots of questions, and people have been inquiring. So I think it's a good time to start. Again, it doesn't mean we're tied in a knot and we have to stop, but it's a good start going forward. So I fully support this. I'm excited about it. I know we have a few things that we'll need to iron out along the way, but I look forward to going forward with that. So with that said, do I have a motion to move item 8A?
I'd like to move that we approve item 8A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And I very rarely do this, but I'd like to suggest that the council consider a short amendment to the resolution authorizing and directing village staff to apply for and pursue readjustment of the boundaries for Miami Shores.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Somebody would need to make that as an amendment, please.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we amend the resolution to direct staff to ask the school board to adjust the boundaries.
I'll accept that as a seconder.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes. Thank you.
Item 8B, a resolution of the Village Council of Miami Shores Village, Florida, authorizing the village manager to execute an intergovernmental agency agreement for the wrapping of traffic signal controller cabinets. This item is sponsored by the village manager and the Fine Arts Commission.
Mr. Manager, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, ma'am. Council has previously approved the decorative wrapping of the traffic control signal cabinets in various locations throughout our community. In order for me to sign an interlocal agreement with the county, I need the attached resolution signed, which authorizes me to sign the interlocal agreement with them, which essentially says we're going to do the maintenance. If there's graffiti or if something happens to it, then we'll be responsible for taking care of the vinyl wrap, if you will. Not the interior or anything like that, just what we put on their cabinet.
Thank you. Any comments? I have one question to Mrs. Ackley. For the design, because I like this. Who's the artist, may I ask? Have we
Yes.
procured the artist?
Her name is Courtney Einhorn.
And what's her genre?
It is abstracts.
Abstract?
Very colorful abstracts. And one of our other board members, Victor Bruce, who is an architect here locally, he had seen her work on other utility boxes somewhere in the county. And he brought her forward. We did look at probably 5 or 6 other artists, but she was the one we chose. Yes.
Councilman?
Is this going to be, is it going to be stunning, let's just say, or is it going to be more harmonious?
It's going to be colorful and vibrant throughout our village, and I keep emphasizing this. I have been very disappointed that our program is Northeast 2nd Avenue and East, and this is allowing us to move west and north and south a little bit. So that's why I'm pleased with it. And it's not, I know our village manager is very concerned that we not look like Wynwood. We will not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with looking like Wynwood a little bit, just a little flavor.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Let's have coffee with Tom someday.
Right, do I have an motion for approval?
Madam Mayor, I'll move approval.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
there's one vacancy on the Library Board of Trustees and 2 Code Enforcement Board vacancies. Applications can be found on the village website in the clerk's office and will be accepted through this Friday, June 7th. The next meeting of the Village Council will be held at the Village Hall on Tuesday, June 18th, 2019, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Would you rather receive the newsletter via email? Residents can sign up to receive the monthly newsletter by email. Simply use the Contact Us link on the front page of our website. Be sure your email includes your name and mailing address. The communications manager will take care of the rest. Please visit the village website for more information on village events departments and to sign up to receive agenda notifications. And Councilman Jonathan Meltz will be hosting a plastic reduction community workshop on Monday, June 10th, 2019, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Miami Shores Community Center, 9617 Park Drive. It's an open discussion on the problem of plastic. Next item is Village Council comments.
We'll start with Councilman Lafredo. Do you have comments this morning?
Yes, I would like to commend everyone that's listening to this to attend Councilman Meltz's plastic workshop, because I attended the first one, and this one's supposed to be bigger. But it really gets into the nitty-gritty of the thing, and it's very important. And I would just strongly commend your appearance, because we're going to be a lot through the work of our legislatures. We're actually going to be able to make some changes. So it's important that we have an informed public. The other thing is, I don't know if this is premature, but I know we have an excellent maintenance facility at the Recreation Department, and I've heard that the field at the Miami Shores Elementary School could use some work. And I was wondering if maybe the council might consider at budget time looking into helping them a little bit. Not a major expenditure, but I'm just throwing it out there for consideration. That's all I have.
Attorney Serafin.
To that point, in our meetings with the school board staff, we did bring up the field, and they're going to be getting substantial improvements, including a new irrigation system out there on the school board's dime. So
Okay.
that was good to hear.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Brady.
So I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank the council for acting on this. Thank the Education Advisory Board and staff for working on this for quite a while. And I just wanted to say, especially after hearing our presentation from our legislators that were here today, I think that we are going to get the best outcomes when we all work together and line up and coordinate the activities of all our supporting agencies. I'm glad to see that happening, and I think that's going to continue to make Miami Shores a better place to live. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Birch.
Yes, I have some thanks. I'd like to thank Senator Pizzo and Representative Joseph for their report. It was great to have that much attention trained on Miami Shores from our elected officials. And Mayor Wagner, once again, I'd like to thank you for being over there at DCS and being part of school life there. I think that's just a tremendous contribution, and I know that they all appreciate it. And congratulations to all 73 graduates of our charter school. Very proud of them and in what their amazing achievements in their ability to obtain scholarships and go forward with their work as really educated individuals. And I also did not thank the Education Advisory Board when I was speaking earlier, and I want to thank them. I know they have put in a lot of effort in taking it very seriously. And I thank you, and that's it.
Thank you. I just want to make one last comment on the item 8A with regard to Miami Shores Elementary. There are a lot of communities around Miami-Dade County that are paying close attention to their local schools, and they're a bit louder than we've been, and it's time for us to make our voices heard. Hence, we have wonderful Doctors Charter, and I'm telling you that ceremony was just so inspiring on Sunday, but we've got there, and we have to keep that momentum going, and we need to continue to be vocal. I think this is a start. I don't think it's the end. I think we can keep adding to it. But I think it's incumbent upon us as a community to make our voices heard about what we want in our community for our local education. So I'd like for our voices to even be louder, just like Pinecrest or whatever. They come out and they make their voices heard, not just at the council, but at school district level as well. we should be reaching out to those folks to let them know what we want and what's important to us. So I think this was the fruits of a lot of folks' labor, and it's greatly appreciated, and I look forward to going forward. And I have nothing further for this evening.
Mayor Wagner, I left a name out of
Sure.
thanks here. Immediate past Mayor Macklin took this bull by the horns, really, and we owe a lot to him and to the manager for opening the door to this negotiation. And if he's listening tonight, I hope he feels triumphant that we are moving forward with this initiative, and I also understand that there may be some allocation of some funds from the mayor's ball that he might direct toward this. So I think that would be much appreciated and try to help ameliorate the cost.
Right.
So thanks, former Mayor Glynn. Thank you very much.
I second those thoughts. I concur. Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Macklin, for getting this ball rolling. Do we have any other comments? Okay, there being no further business before the council, this meeting is therefore adjourned. Thank you.